The Declaration and the Secret. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring-shaped station that had witnessed 1,000 years of interstellar diplomacy. Today, the chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 200 species gathered for an emergency session. The curved walls displayed the vastness of space beyond, stars twinkling like distant witnesses to the drama unfolding within. Commander Xyrath of the Keltharian Empire stood at the central podium, his four arms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, resulting in thick, muscular bodies covered in plates of natural armor. His eyes, all 6 of them, gleamed with confidence as he surveyed the assembled delegates. The Keltharians were among the oldest spacefaring civilizations, with a history of conquest stretching back 3,000 years. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Xyrath's voice resonated through the chamber, amplified by the station's acoustic systems. I stand before you to announce a decision that has been centuries in the making. The Keltharian Empire hereby declares a state of war against the species known as humanity. A wave of surprised murmurs rippled through the assembly. Wars were not uncommon in the galaxy, but formal declarations before the council were rare. Most conflicts began with border skirmishes or trade disputes that escalated slowly. This was different. In the human delegation section, a man in a simple blue uniform remained perfectly still. Dr. Michael Chen was Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, a position he had held for only 3 years. He was a scholar by training, specializing in xenolinguistics and interstellar law. Nothing in his academic background had prepared him for this moment, yet his face showed no trace of fear or surprise. Xyrath continued, his voice growing stronger. For 50 years, humanity has expanded through space like a plague. They have established colonies on 300 worlds. They claim empty systems, build their stations, and spread their influence without regard for the natural order of the galaxy. They are newcomers, barely a century removed from their first primitive rockets, yet they act as though the stars belong to them. The commander activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the podium showing human settlements, space stations, and colonies. Each one was marked with Keltharian strategic assessments. But this is not merely about territorial disputes, Xyrath said. Humanity represents a fundamental threat to galactic stability. They reproduce rapidly. They adapt quickly. They show no respect for the hierarchies that have maintained peace for millennia. If we allow them to continue unchecked, they will eventually threaten every established civilization. He paused for effect, letting his words sink in. Then he raised all 4 arms, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed warships, hundreds upon hundreds of them, arranged in precise battle formations. Behold the Grand Armada of the Keltharian Empire, Xyrath announced with unmistakable pride. 500 warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering and military design. We have spent 20 years building this fleet, purchasing the finest vessels from the most reputable shipyards in the galaxy. Each ship is equipped with quantum shielding technology, plasma cannons capable of melting asteroids, and hyperspace engines that can cross a sector in hours. The holographic vessels rotated slowly, showing their sleek designs. They were beautiful in a lethal way, with smooth hulls that could deflect energy weapons and weapon arrays that bristled from every angle. The smaller species in the chamber actually recoiled at the sight. Against this force, Xyrath continued, humanity possesses perhaps 80 combat-capable vessels. Outdated designs. Primitive weapons. The war will last no more than 6 standard months. We will drive them back to their home system, limit their expansion, and teach them their proper place in the cosmic order. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species voiced support for the Keltharians, particularly those who felt threatened by human expansion. Others called for diplomatic solutions. A few remained conspicuously silent, their expressions unreadable. Ambassador Chen rose from his seat and walked calmly to the speaking platform. The rules of the council allowed any accused party to respond immediately. He climbed the steps with measured precision, his movements betraying no anxiety despite the massive alien warrior looming before him. Commander Xyrath, Chen said, his voice steady and clear. The United Territories of Earth has no desire for conflict with the Keltharian Empire. We have always sought peaceful relations with all galactic civilizations. The systems we have settled were uninhabited and unclaimed. We have violated no treaties and threatened no one. Xyrath laughed, a sound like grinding stones. Peaceful? You multiply like bacteria in a culture dish. 50 years ago, you had 1 world. Now you have 300 colonies. How long before you decide that Keltharian space looks attractive for expansion? Space is vast, Commander. There is room for all of us. Room? Xyrath's voice dripped with contempt. You speak of room while your species breeds without restraint. You will consume every available resource, claim every empty world, and eventually you will turn your attention to what belongs to others. We act now to prevent that future. Chen met his gaze without flinching. Before any blood is shed, I request 72 hours. There are administrative matters that must be addressed. Communications that must be sent. Notifications that must be delivered. Surely the mighty Keltharian Empire can grant this small delay. Xyrath studied the human carefully. There was something in the smaller being's eyes, a quality he could not quite identify. Not fear, certainly. Perhaps resignation? Or was it something else entirely? Very well, Xyrath said finally. You may have your 72 hours. Use them to evacuate your outer colonies if you wish. It will make no difference to the outcome. Pray to whatever gods you worship, human. It will not save you. Thank you, Commander, Chen said quietly. I hope you will remember this conversation. The ambassador returned to his seat, and the council session continued with procedural matters. But the war declaration dominated every whispered conversation in the corridors afterward. Most species agreed that humanity had no chance. The Keltharians were ancient warriors with technology refined over millennia. Humans were infants in galactic terms, still learning the basics of interstellar civilization. What none of them knew was that as Ambassador Chen walked back to the human delegation offices, he was composing a message in his mind. A message that would travel through channels no other species knew existed. Chen entered his private office and sealed the door. He activated a communication terminal with encryption protocols that Earth's intelligence services had developed in secret. The technology was quantum-based, using entangled particles to create an unbreakable connection. No alien species had ever detected these communications, because no alien species knew to look for them. He typed a brief message, "They don't know. Verify Project Phantom. Prepare Contingency 7. 72 hours." The message traveled instantaneously through the quantum network, arriving at a facility buried deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon. From there, it was relayed to another facility in the asteroid belt, then to a station orbiting Jupiter, and finally to its ultimate destination. Far beyond Neptune, in the cold darkness of the outer solar system, there existed a region of space that appeared empty on all official charts. It was designated as the extended Kuiper Belt, a zone of scattered ice and rock debris left over from the solar system's formation. Most species considered it worthless, too far from the sun to be useful for anything. But appearances can be deceiving. Hidden among the tumbling rocks and frozen comets were structures that should not exist. Massive shipyards, each one larger than a city, hung in the darkness. They were painted matte black and shielded with technology that absorbed or deflected every type of sensor scan known to galactic science. Heat signatures were vented into the frozen rocks. Electromagnetic emissions were contained by specially designed dampening fields. Even visual detection was nearly impossible, as the structures blended perfectly with the surrounding debris. This was Project Phantom, humanity's greatest secret. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood in the command center of Phantom Station Alpha, watching Chen's message appear on her screen. She was a tall woman with gray hair tied back in a tight bun, her face marked by the kind of lines that came from making difficult decisions. She had spent 15 years overseeing Project Phantom, watching it grow from a desperate gamble into humanity's insurance policy. "Sound General Alert," she ordered. "Activate all defense protocols. I want every ship commander in the briefing room in 20 minutes." Around her, the command center burst into controlled activity. Officers moved to their stations, screens lit up with tactical displays, and communication channels opened to every corner of the hidden facility. Okonkwo walked to the observation deck and looked out at the construction bays. Even after 15 years, the sight still impressed her. Dozens of massive frameworks held partially completed starships, each one surrounded by clouds of construction drones and human workers in spacesuits. But these were not the ships that mattered most right now. She pressed a button on her wrist communicator. "Lieutenant Park, status report on the Ghost Fleet." A woman's voice responded immediately. "Ghost Fleet is at 98% combat readiness, Admiral. All 50 vessels are fueled, armed, and crewed. We can launch within 6 hours." "Make it 4 hours," Okonkwo said. "And Lieutenant? Activate the archive." There was a brief pause. "The archive, Admiral? Are you certain?" "Do it. They need to know what they're really facing." The archive was a database that Project Phantom had been compiling for 20 years. It contained detailed information about every starship that humanity had built for other species. Complete technical specifications, design documents, manufacturing records, and most importantly, detailed analysis of every strength and every weakness. Because humanity had not spent the last 20 years merely building its own fleet. It had been building everyone else's fleets too. 2 decades earlier, when humanity had first joined the galactic community, Earth's leaders faced a terrifying reality. They were surrounded by civilizations that had been exploring space for thousands of years. Some were friendly, some were neutral, and some viewed humanity as potential prey. Earth had defensive capabilities, but nothing that could match the established powers. Direct military buildup would be seen as aggression. It would trigger exactly the kind of unified response that could destroy humanity before it had a chance to grow. Earth needed a different strategy. The solution came from an unlikely source, a commercial shipbuilding corporation called Nexus Industries. They proposed creating a network of shell companies that would offer shipbuilding services to alien civilizations. The ships would be excellent, meeting or exceeding all contracted specifications. They would be sold at competitive prices. And most importantly, they would give humanity an intimate understanding of galactic military technology. The proposal was controversial. Many Earth leaders saw it as dishonorable, building weapons that might one day be used against humanity. But the alternative was worse. Without detailed knowledge of alien military capabilities, Earth would always be vulnerable. The decision was made. Project Phantom was born. Over the next 20 years, human engineers designed and built ships for dozens of species. Mining vessels for the Groth Confederacy. Exploration ships for the Tellarian Republic. Patrol craft for the Nexian Commerce Guild. And military vessels for species like the Keltharians. Every ship was built to specification. Every contract was fulfilled honestly. Humanity earned a reputation for quality and reliability. The shell companies prospered, and no one suspected that they were all controlled by Earth. But while humanity built ships for others, it also built ships for itself. Ships that incorporated every lesson learned from 20 years of studying alien technology. Ships that were specifically designed to counter the vessels humanity had sold. Admiral Okonkwo's communicator chimed. "Admiral, all ship commanders are assembled." She turned from the observation deck and headed to the briefing room. It was time to explain to Earth's secret fleet that they were about to face an enemy equipped with weapons and ships that humans had designed. And it was time to show Commander Zyrith exactly what kind of species he had chosen to attack. The 72-hour countdown had begun. The battle and the revelation. Commander Zyrith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the countdown timer tick toward zero. Around him, his command crew worked with practiced efficiency, their multiple limbs moving across holographic control panels. Through the massive viewport, he could see the assembled might of the Keltharian Grand Armada stretched across space like a deadly constellation. 500 warships. The culmination of 20 years of planning and construction. Each vessel had cost the equivalent of a planetary economy, purchased from Nexus Shipworks and other premium manufacturers. The Keltharians had spared no expense, demanding the finest materials and most advanced technology available in the galaxy. "All battle groups report ready, Commander," his tactical officer announced. "Hyperspace coordinates locked. We await your order." Zyrith allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This would be remembered as a historic moment, the day the Keltharian Empire reminded the younger species of their place. The humans would be pushed back to their home system, their expansion halted, their ambitions crushed. It would be a lesson to every upstart civilization that thought they could challenge the established order. "Initiate jump sequence," Zyrith commanded. "All vessels, enter hyperspace on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The stars stretched and twisted as 500 warships vanished from normal space, traveling faster than light toward the human border colonies. The journey would take 6 hours. Zyrith used the time to review his battle plans, confident that nothing could prevent his victory. He had no way of knowing that at that precise moment, 50 ships were emerging from hiding in the outer reaches of the Sol system. Admiral Okonkwo watched the Ghost Fleet deploy from Phantom Station. The ships moved in perfect formation, their crews trained to a level of precision that would surprise anyone who thought humans were new to space warfare. These vessels represented humanity's true military capability, hidden for 2 decades while Earth played the role of a minor, peaceful species. The Ghost Fleet ships were sleek and angular, their hulls composed of composite materials that human engineers had developed by studying every alien design flaw they had encountered. They incorporated Keltharian shield technology, Groth propulsion systems, Tellarian sensor arrays, and Nexian weapon platforms, but all improved beyond the original specifications. These were not copies of alien technology. They were evolutionary next steps. All ships reporting green status, Admiral, Lieutenant Park reported from her station. "Ghost Fleet is ready for combat operations." "Excellent." Okonkwo pulled up a tactical display showing the Keltharian fleet's projected route. "They'll hit the Aurora colony first. It's our most exposed settlement, only 8 light-years from Keltharian space. They expect to find frightened colonists and a token defense force." She smiled grimly. Instead, they're going to find out exactly what happens when you attack the people who built your weapons. On the display, a second group of ships appeared. These were Earth's official defense fleet, the 80 vessels that the galaxy knew about. They were older designs, purchased or licensed from various manufacturers over the past 50 years. To any observer, they would seem hopelessly outmatched. But Admiral Okonkwo had not survived 15 years of secret military operations by being predictable. "Contact Captain Rodriguez on the Defiant," she ordered. "Tell him to position the defense fleet exactly as planned. They need to make it look good." "Aye, Admiral." Okonkwo settled into her command chair and waited. The next few hours would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. Either the Keltharians would learn a hard lesson about underestimating their opponents, or Earth would face a war it might not survive. She thought about Ambassador Chen, still at the Galactic Council, maintaining the facade of a desperate diplomat seeking peace. He had played his role perfectly, giving no hint of Project Phantom's existence. When the truth came out, and it would come out, the galactic community would have to reassess everything they thought they knew about humanity. The countdown continued. The Keltharian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Aurora system with mathematical precision. 500 warships materialized in perfect battle formation, their weapons already charging, their shields already raised. It was a textbook military deployment, the kind that struck fear into any defender's heart. Commander Zyreth surveyed the system through his ship's advanced sensors. Aurora was a young colony, barely 15 years old, built on a terrestrial planet with abundant water and a breathable atmosphere. Intelligence reports indicated a population of approximately 50,000 humans, mostly scientists, engineers, and their families. The colony had minimal defenses, a few orbital platforms and perhaps a dozen patrol ships. "Scan for enemy vessels," Zyreth ordered. "Contact, Commander," his sensor officer reported. "I'm detecting 32 human ships moving to intercept. They appear to be standard defense fleet configurations. Cruiser-class and frigate-class vessels. 32 ships against 500. The numbers were almost insulting. Display their formations." The tactical screen showed the human ships arranged in a loose defensive sphere around the colony. They were moving, but not running. That surprised Zyreth. He had expected them to flee or surrender immediately. Instead, they seemed to be preparing for battle. "Perhaps they are braver than I thought," Zyreth mused. "Or more foolish. Battle Group Alpha, advance and engage. Destroy their ships but leave the colony intact. We want survivors to spread word of what happens when humanity defies the Keltharian Empire." 100 warships broke from the main formation and accelerated toward the human defensive line. Their weapons came online, plasma cannons glowing with deadly energy. Shield generators hummed at full power. Every system performed exactly as designed. The human ships opened fire first, launching missiles and energy beams that splashed harmlessly against Keltharian shields. Return fire from the Keltharian vessels was devastating. The first human frigate exploded in a brilliant flash, its hull unable to withstand the concentrated plasma barrage. "Direct hit," the weapons officer reported. "Enemy vessel destroyed." Zyreth nodded with satisfaction. This was going exactly as planned. The human ships were fighting, but they were outmatched in every category. Better weapons, better shields, better. "Commander, I'm detecting anomalous readings from several of our ships." "Explain." "Battle Group Alpha's 3rd Squadron is reporting shield fluctuations. The generators are operating within normal parameters, but the shield strength is varying unpredictably." Zyreth frowned. "Run diagnostics. It's probably just interference from the planet's magnetic field." But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Ships throughout Battle Group Alpha were experiencing minor malfunctions. Nothing critical, just small glitches that shouldn't be happening in brand new vessels. The human ships pressed their attack, and Zyreth noticed something odd about their tactics. They weren't targeting the Keltharian vessels randomly. They were focusing their fire on specific points: shield generator arrays, sensor clusters, weapon cooling systems. It was as if they knew exactly where each ship's vulnerable points were located. "Commander, the Stormbringer reports complete shield failure. Cause unknown." "What?" Zyreth turned to his sensor officer. "How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir. The shield generators show no damage, but they're not producing a stable field. The ship is withdrawing from combat." 3 more ships reported similar problems. Then 5 more. The malfunctions were spreading through Battle Group Alpha like a disease. Ships that had performed flawlessly during months of training and exercises were suddenly experiencing cascading system failures. "Recall Battle Group Alpha," Zyreth ordered, his confidence beginning to crack. "Battle Group Beta, advance and engage." I want full diagnostic scans of every system. 100 fresh warships moved forward, their crews determined to succeed where the first wave had faltered. But as they entered weapons range, the same pattern emerged. Shield fluctuations. Weapon overheating. Navigation errors. One Caltharian destroyer actually collided with a friendly cruiser when its maneuvering thrusters fired at the wrong moment. And through it all, the human ships continued their precise, surgical attacks. They moved with a coordination that suggested perfect knowledge of Caltharian tactics. They targeted systems with an accuracy that went beyond lucky guessing. It was almost as if Xyretha's mind raced, connecting pieces of information that he had ignored before. The human ambassador's strange calm. The request for 72 hours. The way Ambassador Chen had looked at him, as if he knew something important. Communications officer, get me a priority channel to Caltharian High Command. I need to speak with the Procurement Ministry immediately. Yes, Commander. While he waited, Xyreth pulled up the purchasing records for the Grand Armada. Every ship had been bought from reputable manufacturers. Nexus Shipworks had provided the majority of the vessels, including the Eternal Dominion itself. The company had an excellent reputation, known for quality craftsmanship and reliable performance. The communication connected. A bureaucrat from the Procurement Ministry appeared on the screen, looking irritated at being disturbed. Commander Xyreth, this is highly irregular. We are not supposed to. Tell me about Nexus Shipworks, Xyreth interrupted. Who owns it? Where are they based? Nexus Shipworks? They're a reputable corporation registered in the neutral commerce zones. We conducted extensive background checks before awarding them the contracts. Why do you? Who owns it? Xyreth roared. The bureaucrat flinched. The ownership structure is complex. Multiple shell corporations, holding companies, investment funds. That's standard for large manufacturers. But I can trace the chain if you give me time. Do it now. I want answers in 10 minutes. Xyreth cut the connection and turned back to the battle. His forces were in disarray. 200 ships engaged, and nearly 40 had been forced to withdraw due to malfunctions. The humans had lost only 6 vessels. The mathematics of this battle were impossible, yet they were happening. His communicator chimed. Ambassador Chen's face appeared on a private channel. Good afternoon, Commander Xyreth, the human said pleasantly. I hope you're enjoying the performance of your fleet. What have you done? Xyreth demanded. What sabotage have you planted in our ships? Sabotage? Chen looked genuinely offended. Commander, I assure you that every vessel in your fleet was built exactly to specification. Every system performs precisely as contracted. We installed nothing that wasn't in the agreed-upon designs. Then how? Because we know those designs better than your own engineers do, Chen said quietly. We wrote them. We built them. We tested them. We know every strength and every weakness, not because we sabotaged anything, but because we created everything. The truth hit Xyreth like a physical blow. Nexus Shipworks is owned by a subsidiary of a holding company, which is owned by another corporation, which is ultimately owned by the United Territories Defense Initiative. Every ship in your Grand Armada was designed and built by human engineers, Commander. We've known for 20 years that this day might come. We prepared accordingly. On the tactical display, more Caltharian ships were withdrawing with system failures. The human defense fleet, though outnumbered, was methodically dismantling the attackers using targeting data that could only have come from the original design specifications. You're not defeating us through superior technology, Chen continued. You're defeating yourselves with technology you bought from us. Every time your crews push their systems to maximum performance, they're exceeding the safe operational thresholds that we deliberately built into those designs. Every time they try to boost shield strength, they're overloading power junctions that we knew would fail under sustained stress. We didn't sabotage your ships, Commander. We just didn't tell you their limitations. Xyretha's communicator chimed again. The Procurement Ministry bureaucrat appeared, his face pale. Commander, I've traced the ownership of Nexus Shipworks. The ultimate parent company it's registered on Earth. Commander, the humans built our entire fleet. The bridge fell silent. Every Caltharian officer stared at their commander, waiting for orders that would make sense of this impossible situation. Xyreth looked at the tactical display. His Grand Armada, the pride of the Caltharian Empire, was being systematically disabled by a force 1/6 its size. Not through superior firepower, but through superior knowledge. And then, as if to emphasize humanity's advantage, new contacts appeared on the sensors. Commander, I'm detecting hyperspace signatures. Multiple inbound vessels. 50 ships emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge. Identify them. The sensor officer's voice shook. They're not in our database, Commander. These are ship configurations we've never seen before. On Chen's communication screen, the ambassador smiled. Allow me to introduce you to the Ghost Fleet, Commander. Those are vessels that humanity built for itself. Not sold to anyone else. Not shared with the galaxy. They incorporate everything we learned from 20 years of studying alien technology, including yours. They represent what human engineers can do when we're not deliberately limiting our designs to meet someone else's specifications. The 50 new ships moved into formation with the defense fleet. They were larger than the human vessels Xyrath had been fighting, and their energy signatures showed power outputs that exceeded Keltharian battleships. Commander Xyrath, Chen said formally, I am authorized to offer terms. Withdraw your forces immediately, and we will allow your ships to return home intact. Continue this attack, and we will disable your entire fleet. We have no desire to kill Keltharian soldiers, but we will defend our colonies. Xyrath stared at the tactical display. 300 ships remained operational in his armada, but they were designed by the enemy. Their every weakness was known, their every limitation documented. And now humanity had revealed a secret fleet that outclassed everything the Keltharians possessed. This wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. All ships, Xyrath said quietly, cease fire and withdraw to safe distance. Stand down weapons and shields. His officers looked at him in shock, but they obeyed. Across the battlefield, Keltharian warships powered down their weapons and began retreating. A wise decision, Commander, Chen said. Now, I think it's time we had a more honest conversation about humanity's place in the galaxy. Don't you? Xyrath said nothing. He simply stared at the human ships, built with human technology that his species had unknowingly purchased, and realized that the Keltharian Empire had just learned the hardest lesson of all. Never underestimate the species that builds your weapons. 3 days later, the Galactic Council reconvened. This time, Ambassador Chen stood at the central podium, and Commander Xyrath sat quietly in the Keltharian section, his 4 arms folded in a posture of subdued contemplation. Esteemed members of the Council, Chen began, I come before you today to reveal a truth that humanity has kept hidden for 20 years. We have not been entirely forthcoming about our capabilities. He activated the holographic display, and images appeared of Phantom Station, the shipyards, the Ghost Fleet, and most dramatically, a comprehensive list of every species that had purchased ships from human-controlled companies. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted questions, accusations, and demands. Chen waited patiently for silence. We built your ships honestly, he said when he could be heard again. Every specification was met. Every contract was fulfilled. We did not install backdoors or sabotage devices. But we did gain knowledge, and we used that knowledge to ensure our own survival. He looked directly at Commander Xyrath. The Keltharian Empire learned this lesson at minimal cost. Only 14 ships were actually destroyed in the battle, and those were unfortunate casualties of combat. The rest were merely disabled and have since been repaired. No colonies were bombarded. No civilians were harmed. The war lasted less than a day. Chen's voice grew harder. But let this be a message to every species in this chamber. Humanity will not be pushed around. We will not accept limitations on our growth simply because we are young. We have earned our place among the stars, not through conquest, but through intelligence and preparation. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are willing to share our shipbuilding expertise openly now. We will work with any species that wishes to upgrade their fleets with the latest technology. But from this day forward, everyone will know that humanity is not weak, not naive, and not to be underestimated. The council session continued for hours, with endless debates about the implications of humanity's revelation. Some species were angry at the deception. Others were impressed by the strategic thinking. A few were terrified at what humans might do next. But one thing was clear, humanity had fundamentally changed its position in the galactic hierarchy. They were no longer newcomers to be patronized or threatened. They were players, and they had just demonstrated that they knew how to play the game. Commander Xyrath requested a private meeting with Ambassador Chen after the session. They met in the same small room where Chen had first revealed the truth. You could have destroyed us, Xyrath said bluntly. Why didn't you? Chen considered the question carefully. Because we don't want to be conquerors, Commander. We want to be partners, colleagues, maybe even friends eventually. But we needed the galaxy to understand that partnership means mutual respect, not dominance. My empire will not forget this humiliation. It wasn't meant as humiliation, Chen replied gently. It was meant as education. The galaxy is changing, Commander. The old ways of the strong dominating the weak are becoming obsolete. Species that adapt will thrive. Those that don't. He shrugged. Xyrath stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. The younger species will see what happened and lose their fear of us. The established powers will lose their authority. Perhaps, Chen agreed. Or perhaps they'll learn to maintain their authority through cooperation rather than intimidation. That's up to you. The Keltharian commander turned back to face him. Your species is dangerous, Ambassador Chen. Not because of your weapons, but because of your thinking. You see the universe differently than we do. Is that a compliment or a threat? I'm not certain yet. Xyrith moved toward the door, then paused. But I suspect we will all find out together. After he left, Chen remained in the room, watching the stars and thinking about the future. Humanity had revealed itself today. There was no going back to obscurity, no returning to the comfortable position of being underestimated. From now on, every species would be watching, wondering what other secrets humanity might be hiding. That scrutiny would be uncomfortable, even dangerous at times. But it was better than being dismissed as insignificant. Better than being attacked because someone thought you were weak. Ambassador Chen smiled to himself. His father had once told him that the best defense was not the biggest weapon, but the smartest strategy. Today, humanity had proven that wisdom to the entire galaxy. And somewhere beyond Neptune, in the cold darkness of space, Admiral Okonkwo was already planning what to build next. The galaxy would never be the same.